What's up, everybody, and welcome to Growing Up Gaming, your weekly podcast where we meet a new person of the internet to discuss their childhood with gaming and how it inspired their lives today. My name is Mitch Power. Again, thank you guys so much for returning each and every week to the show. I hope you're subscribing there on iTunes or Google Play or Spotify or YouTube. If you're checking me out on any of those platforms, I greatly appreciate it. This week on the show, we have our guest. His name is BC Mostyn. I met this man on Twitter. I reached out to him, asked if he would like to be a guest in the show, and he was very nice enough to share his stories with me. If you guys want to be in the show just like he was, send me a tweet at MitchPower1116 on Twitter or at the podcast Twitter page, which is at GUG Podcast on Twitter. Without further ado, let's get things started with BC Mostyn. Do you remember what initially got you started playing games? Was it a family member? Was it a friend? Was it some cool magazine you saw at the store? Like, what initially got you started?
Yeah, so my story is pretty embedded in my my memory. I'm actually working on a talk about it, but it has started with it's all thanks to my mom. My mom got me into gaming. I remember she had an Intellivision. Do you remember those?
Yes.
So she had one of those, but I was really young and I don't remember playing it, or I probably didn't know how to play it. Right, I was like 3 or 4. But what I remembered was there were these little, for each game, it had a little card that you slid into the controller, and I remember that and being really stoked about that. And I was a little kid. I was like, oh, this is cool. But I'm like, no, it's a video game. You know, I didn't know any better.
Right.
But she had that and she played it, and she dug it. And then when I turned 5, for Christmas, they got me a Nintendo, the original NES, and what's funny is, so I got it and it came with the, split Mario Duck Hunt. And that's the only game I got with it, that was packaged in. But what's funny is I found out when I was older that my mom, she had bought it 3 weeks before Christmas, opened it, played it, and beat Mario, and then packaged it all up and put it under the tree.
Yes, Mom, that's awesome.
Right? Killer. As an adult, I'm like, hell yeah, Mom, you rule. And what's funny, I should have caught on, but I was little and stupid because there was this one morning, a week into having it, where, so I first time playing video games, I get the Fire Flower, and having never pressed B ever, because you have to hold it. So when I would press it, it wouldn't do anything. I would keep pressing it. I wouldn't hold it down.
Right.
So I'm like, oh, that button doesn't do anything in the game. So I would get a flower and I'd be like, oh, cool. He changes colors. That's what a flower does. And then a week later, I accidentally push B and shoot a fireball. And I'm just like it's like a dawn of a new era for me.
Your tiny little head exploded. You're like,
yeah,
oh my God,
yeah.
Look what can be done.
Yeah. I'm like, it's a whole new world.
That's so
and,
funny.
I run in and tell my mom, and it was super early. I think she was still sleeping. And I'm like, Mom, if you push B, you shoot a fireball. And she was just like, yeah, I know. And
she knew what was up
and goes
already.
back to sleep. And I should have caught on, oh, she must have played this or something. But I was 5 and stupid. I was a little kid.
Of course.
Right?
I love that. That's hilarious. She's like, yeah, I know, kid. Just
yeah. She's like, shut up, let me go to sleep.
Yeah. That's hilarious. That she so at least that. It's a good thing, though, in that regard, because she at least was encouraging of gaming because she also enjoyed it herself.
Oh, yeah, big time. She was really stoked about it. She's always been more of a puzzle gamer. Another funny story with that was, this was, this was 1990, early 90s. You still rented games, right? You went to the video store and you rented games, and, you'd spin those weird carousels that had all the games in them. And I remember seeing Dr. Mario, and I'm like, oh man, the new Mario game. And I didn't have magazines. I didn't see it on TV. I'm like, cool, it's a new Mario game. And so we rented it, brought it home, and I played it. And as a kid, I'm just like, what the hell is this?
Yes, what?
This isn't Mario.
Mario?
Yeah, I was pissed. But my mom immediately took to it, and she just destroyed that game. So it was funny. We kind of had this divide where I liked action games, adventure games, and she played tons of puzzle games. Right. Still to this day, too. She's more of a puzzle gamer. All those what were those Amazon type games with the marbles on iPad. I can't remember what they're called, but she'd play those.
Oh yeah, I mean, that kind of puzzle game's been probably 50 incarnations of it and like 900 different names and shit. Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. And the match 3 games, all that stuff. So, but she's always checked out the games I played. She's really keen to what, like, even to this day. Like I bought my own Switch like a year or two ago, maybe 2 years ago now, whenever it came out.
Right.
And she was asking me about it, and I'm like, oh, I bought Zelda and a couple digital games, and like without having asked me for my birthday, she got me Odyssey.
Nice.
Like, oh, I figured you like this, and I'm like, hell yeah, Ma, thanks.
Yeah, like right on, Mom. Yeah. You are correct.
Yeah. So
That's awesome.
She's always kept up to date and knows her stuff. But yeah, so she's the one who got me into it. She definitely encouraged it. And always she would poke fun at me just for playing so much, especially as I got older. But if anybody told me to go outside, it was my dad. He was like, "Dude, you're playing too long. Go outside. Like, go do something."
I mean, like, and that's the thing too, is like you get those types of like parents that. I mean, the cool thing is even your mom staying up to date current. I mean, that obviously had to help considerably when it comes to getting games as gifts and all that stuff, because you didn't have to convince her so much. It was more your dad was just not necessarily against it, but he was just probably like, hey, just do other things too. Go outside and do stuff. Where did you end up growing up?
So I grew up, I live in New York, Rochester, New York, but I grew up in the Adirondacks of New York. So like a large chunk of the state is this Adirondack Park region.
Right.
And I grew up pretty much in the heart of that, on the western side, but in the heart of it. So, my parents had like 30 acres of land.
Holy crap.
And it literally, the property line backs right up to the state park. So, and the way the state parks work is it's just wild land. So you can just like walk into it, people can hunt it, all this crazy stuff. So that literally was my backyard.
Wow.
So, of course I had my dad who was like, dude, you had like, and I didn't realize this until I like got older and moved out of, my hometown, but like you have like gorgeous nature everywhere. Like,
right. It's just like, you don't realize it, especially when you're a young kid too, is like, you don't realize like landscapes and, like example, I live in Arizona where there is this awesome mountain. Like I look out my window and I can see this like really cool mountain, like right there. And, like when the clouds are like, when there's actually clouds in the sky in Arizona, which is very rare, because it doesn't rain ever. But when there's clouds in the sky and like they cast a shadow on the mountains, I'm like, that looks awesome. I say those things and my kids look at me like, who the fuck cares, Dad? Like, that's the stupidest shit I've ever heard. I'm like, you don't realize it's like, it's magical. And like, meanwhile, you're in like inside playing Mario and you're like, who the fuck cares about trees and shit? Like, no one cares about the outdoors.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But I mean, like, so what was your dad's like main hobby then? Because obviously he was probably more of an outdoors guy if that was where you grew up.
Oh yeah, totally. He's a big outdoors guy. He's a hunter. We went camping a ton, like tons and tons of camping. And just kind of like constantly outdoors doing stuff.
Right.
But the other thing too is my big two things, that I now do with my life are, work in the video games industry, and then music's always been a big thing. And my dad's been a musician since like he was tiny. So we had that thing. We had music like still to this day. We talk instruments, we talk music. And I don't want to say I talk video games with my mom, but she like can keep up and she knows what's going on. So we always had those two interests that I shared between my parents. But my dad just, he didn't get it. He never really, he tried a few times and he's like, nah, this isn't for me. He's like, I'm good. I
mean, at least the cool thing was that your dad wasn't necessarily like so against it that he wouldn't even at least try. He was just like, yeah, let's try this.
Right.
And like it's cool though because at least your dad wasn't discouraging. He just encouraged you to do other things. Because for me, like I never had problems going out of the house and doing things. The only thing that was bad was when like of course you get in trouble or my dad would just say like, get out of the house, like just leave Go do something. But what you wouldn't realize is I would just go to my friend's house and play games. Like it was.
Yeah, totally.
What do you want me to do? Like I'm just going to go.
Yeah.
But I would do a lot of outside stuff still. And then you mentioning your dad playing games. I swear to God, I never saw my dad pick up a controller in his life. Okay. Mm-hmm. Until much later when I was looking at old photo albums. And there's a picture of my dad and my uncle sitting in front of a TV playing Mario. And I'm like, where was that dude
when did this happen?
I was growing up, because I apparently wasn't even a thought in my dad's head at that time.
Right.
But then as soon as he had a kid, he's probably just like, games are for kids. I can't do this anymore. Like,
I can't be caught doing this.
Exactly. Like, hey, Dad, that probably would have been cool to do together, at one point in time in our lives. But no, I mean, and so your mom gets you an NES.
Yep.
Was it... When you got it, obviously you were kind of enthralled with that. Did you ever have any brothers or sisters growing up to play games with?
No, actually, I'm the oldest. I have a younger sister who's like 3.5 years younger than me.
Okay.
And she played games every now and then, but she wasn't like, she didn't get immersed, I would say. She kind of like played because her older brother was playing, but she never really got into it. So like this speaks to this day, I still prefer single player adventure games. Like I never really got into online multiplayer games. I had a lot of friends growing up, and we'd, sleep over at each other's houses and play Mario Kart till, like 4 a.m. But I always, most of my gaming was like single player style, adventure games. Just out of being the only one in the house really playing on my own. So,
did your mom ever do any co-op stuff with you at all?
Not too much. I'm trying to think about it. I don't think so.
I mean, the worst thing is Mario has that 2-player mode, quote unquote, which is bullshit. Like, I'm sorry, you're just taking turns.
Yeah, it's like it's that shit where it's like, I have the friends who have an older brother, or younger brother, or older sibling, I should say, and they're like, yeah, that's the older younger sibling mode where you have to wait. The younger sibling is a second player and just has to wait an hour until the older sibling dies,
right,
and it's their turn.
Yeah, like that. I remember, I always hated that. Like, there's a 2-player mode in Mario, but the fun co-op actual 2-player stuff like Contra, that's that's where you have the 2-player fun. Like games where it says 2-player and you take turns. That's not really a 2-player game. You could do that shit single player too, real fast.
Exactly. You just hand off the controller.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
And it's funny because I remember during PlayStation era, that was what me and my buddies did. We barely didn't. It was all the single player story focused games that we would just pass back and forth if you died. That's exactly how you do it. But then you run into that situation where a guy's just too good at a game, and you're like, all right, asshole, it's time. You got to hand it up. We can't
share.
Yeah. Sharing is caring, goddammit. I want to play Resident Evil now. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right? So what were some of the games that came to your mind? Because, you said, obviously back then it's not like we had multiplayer or online multiplayer. But, what were, the bigger games you remember from then?
So, a lot of the games I remember, funny enough, are ones that my friends had and lent to me. The one of my favorite games of all time is Blaster Master, the original Nintendo one, and that my best friend growing up had that and would lend it to me. And that's a game that had no save states, no passwords, so you just had to just marathon it. And I never beat it as a kid. But that was the first game I could say where I got really immersed and thought about it when I wasn't playing it, and dreamt about it as a kid. So that just hooked me in really, really big time. I would say it wasn't until the next era of consoles that I really I don't want to say I really got into gaming, but I got I considered it a passion. This is a thing I'm really into. Mostly because of our RPGs. I discovered RPGs, and that was just the floodgates for me.
Right.
I just wanted to think about those all the time.
That's where you got your huge immersive story. That's where right there. And you have your huge list of characters, and and what's funny is I was going to ask what console you got, but that you just said it because you got a Super Nintendo. Because obviously Genesis didn't have any damn RPGs ever.
Well, here's the thing. No, I actually got a Sega, and my best buddy had a Super Nintendo, and he was like, hey, want to trade for a weekend? And I'm like, sure. And all he had was Chrono Trigger.
Oh, my God.
Which my favorite game of all time. But at the time, I didn't know what it was. Like, I didn't know what RPGs were. I'm like, what's that? What's that a game? I'm like, that sounds weird. What is that? He's like, oh, it's like there's a lot of story. And I'm like, okay, is it like, Mario, you jumping? He's like, no, not really.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know. This sounds kind of dumb. And like, he lent it to me, and that was an incredible weekend. Like, I
bet.
Just blew me away. And to this day, my favorite game of all time, easy. Just obsessed with that game. But I would beg him to like borrow his Super Nintendo so I could play Chrono Trigger.
Let me just borrow your console again.
Yeah, I never actually owned one. And then I bought, I was like, okay, let me find some RPGs on Sega. And like you said, there was shit.
There was nothing. There was like Phantasy Star and Phantasy
Shining
Star
Force.
2 and Shining Force. And
Yeah.
like, that was insane, man. Like, that was because I didn't even really know of RPGs really existing until Pokemon. But on console, basically. But like, until like Final Fantasy. Like, I remember like the first time I played Pokemon and I was like, what's this combat? You take turns?
Yeah.
This is fucking weird. Like,
where's the? I gotta read so much.
Yeah, reading. But dude, like, I remember like people would read for Pokemon, dude. Because like, if you told me, man, like you're gonna sit there and read a bunch of stuff, man, I don't want to read. Reading's stupid, whatever. And then no, like you play Pokemon, and that's how it is.
And you're into it. Like, I was just sunk into it. Like, it's all I thought about. It's nuts. It's nuts.
Yeah, Pokemon was definitely one of those things that once it became popular, it only took over the world, like it was everywhere. And I was even like, I liked the card game and the video game, wasn't really into the cartoon that much. Only saw the movie in theaters to get the Mew card that came with it. Like, it was that kind of shit. Like, I was so into Pokemon.
Yeah.
I got a job here's something that later I look back on and I go, wow, that was really illegal. I got a job at a comic book store. I basically would show up there so often doing the Pokemon tournaments and shit. And then they basically pulled me aside and they were like, hey, would you like to help out and run the Pokemon tournaments in the leagues? And I was already going there anyways. I was like, yeah, I guess I can help out. They're like, cool, we'll pay you like $30 or $20 in store credit for the day.
Right.
And of course, if you told, 12, 13-year-old me, like, we're going to give you $20 worth of Pokemon cards when you're already coming in here every Saturday anyways, I was like, of course, done. Like, let's do that. Later, I realized, wow, that's child labor. I was off the books. I was completely like, they were doing some shady shit. But guess what? I got Pokemon cards. Everybody won. Yay.
Everybody's happy.
They didn't have to have anybody on payroll for taxes, and they just gave me free shit. So, yeah, I just thought that was, but that's how, like, for a whole chunk of basically, like, middle school was, like, nothing but Pokemon. Like, that's all I gave a shit about.
So funny.
Yeah, so it was just super fun. So, but, I mean, what made you go to Genesis instead of Super Nintendo?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I don't know. I'm trying to think about it. I had another friend who had a Genesis. He had the first gen one with like that actually had like a volume slider on it and everything.
That's the same one I had, which by the way, no one fucking used it ever. Ever. No one plugged headphones in.
No.
Sorry. No one ever did
I had
that.
the second one. I had the second gen that just had power and reset. That was it.
Because they got rid of the volume slider because again, no one used. They're like, we don't need this on here.
This is pointless.
This is real pointless.
Yeah, I don't know. Because I got it and it came packaged with Sonic 2 and Street Fighter 2.
Damn.
Yeah, that's great combo.
That's a great combo.
Yeah, it was a good day when I got that. I funny enough, I never got big into fighting games. I played Street Fighter. I'm like, yeah, this is fun, but it's fun. I was just talking to somebody about this over the weekend. I'm like, he was trying to get me to play new Mortal Kombat. And I'm like, I've never been into fighting games. He's like, that's what everybody says. Just play them. I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, basically, like I remember, like, and again, as far as fighting games go, like, I never got into fighting games as far as, like, competitive fighting games.
Yeah.
But Mortal Kombat was awesome just because you were fucking ruining people. Like, it was all the fatalities and shit that made it good. Like, that was the
you
only
had to
thing
see
that
them.
made it good.
You're like, I was so curious. I'm like, I just want to see it. I just want to see them. What are they like? And then I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, but those are fun.
Yeah, those are great. That's all we did. Me and my friend beat the shit out of each other just so we can get to the like. It was almost like the game wasn't who won. The game was like who's gonna win just so they could do their fatality. That's it. Like that's all we did. It wasn't like after we would win, we would just hit the other person. It was like no, we absolutely have to do every fatality
Oh yeah.
You know, every fatality, babality, brutality, all of them.
Yeah. We for Sega there was this game called Eternal Champions. Do you remember that by any chance?
Yeah.
Yeah, but had the stage kills, which
Yes.
is like kind of the opposite. That was a big deal because I was like, yeah, same thing. We'd be like, all right, because you have to like line the person up in the right spot on the stage because it scrolls,
Right.
and like you hit them there, and when you kick them, you know, like the stage kills them, and we just like play it like that, and like, all right, yeah, whoever you know wins, all right, push them to the other side. Like it was more like a cooperative thing. We're like, all right, yeah, let's get these stage kills.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, stand here. Let me whoop your ass here.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
that's all it was. Like, it's just so funny that.
Just trying to figure them out for hours.
Dude, I'm like Eternal Champions.
Yeah.
Ugh. Like, for some reason, I remember the cover of it. Like,
Oh, yeah.
It's just
It's
so
like bad
bad.
80s art.
Yeah, like I remember the cover of it more than I do the game itself.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
that cover is real bad. But there was,
Yeah.
I remember for the fighting side of things, like I remember getting Street Fighter 2, but I remember feeling like Street Fighter wasn't like I felt like Capcom didn't give a shit about Street Fighter on Genesis because Mortal Kombat was like just better on Genesis. So I felt like anytime anybody mentioned Street Fighter, I just kept thinking like Super Nintendo. Just
100%.
it seemed like that console got more of the Street Fighter love than Mortal Kombat because obviously Nintendo at the time was still like no blood.
Yeah, family friendly.
Family friendly. And meanwhile, I think, you know what it was though? I think that's what got me initially into Sega is because the 90s marketing that they did. They were like, we got attitude and Sonic's cool. Mario's boring, man.
What,
I'm like,
what was their phrase? Sega does what Nintendo
don't.
Yep.
Dude,
great. Blast processing.
What a asshole comment. Like, dude, the guy at marketing was a dick.
He was a total douchebag.
He was just like, hey, Sega does what Nintendo don't. Get that on his commercial now.
Done.
Do it. We're going to sell millions. And they
did.
They did. They sold a lot. And I mean, I remember the bundle I had like the old school, like OG, and I had Sonic 1. Like I basically had the very first model that they had.
Yeah.
And like, I'm looking at pictures now. It's like, like Sonic, he's like, it's super Sonic. He's super speed and super graphics and super attitude. God damn it.
God, it's just too much.
It's just so much. I mean, again, that just screams 90s, like all day.
Oh, yeah.
But,
those commercials, too, were just nuts. Like, they'd have, like, you know, like live action acting with some of them. And it was just so weird.
Yeah. Like, I mean, well, dude, I remember, I still love the fact that there was a Super Nintendo commercial that had Paul Rudd in it, and he looks the fucking same because Paul Rudd doesn't age. If you go look at it, it's creepy because he looks like he just did it yesterday. But no, that's young Paul Rudd. He doesn't. He's a vampire. Go look at Clueless and Endgame.
Oh, that's true. They're
the same person.
Yeah.
It's like him and Keanu Reeves are vampires somehow. Like, I don't know what happened, but
they have their secret meetings.
Exactly. Yeah. Like whatever meetings they're having, like we just got to follow them both until we see them come together and go have some sort of meeting somewhere. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Whose blood are they drinking?
Right. But no, like those 90s commercials and Sonic with the attitude. And that's what made me go Genesis. So
yeah, I bought into it. Like I was all about, I saw the commercial once and was like, that's what there's what I want.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, and I wasn't, I remember playing Sonic and I was like, this is fun. But later down the road, like 1, 2, 3, Knuckles, and I remember I had Sonic Spinball. And then I remember when they did Sonic 3D Blast and it was just bad. I was like,
oh, yeah.
It
was such a letdown.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you ever, I hope you don't say this, did you ever go CD or 32X or no?
No, but a neighbor of mine had 32X. And to be honest, I was like, this is awesome. It's cool that I don't own it, but it's awesome.
Right. Yeah, it's cool to experience it, just not be the sucker that actually bought it. Like,
oh, yeah.
That's the big thing. As long as you weren't the dude that bought it, you're good. You're perfectly fine.
But it was the first time I saw Virtua Fighter. And I was like, holy shit, like you can turn the camera around, all this crazy stuff. But yeah, I remember him, like, I'd be like, dude, let's play Virtua Fighter. And he's like, oh, I don't want to set up the 32X because you had to put like those metal clasps to hold the door open on the Genesis. And he's like, I don't like doing that. And I was like, oh,
dude,
okay.
They made that Genesis, Imagine that shit now. It's like, hey, you have an Xbox One. Let's throw this thing on top with a separate power supply, and we'll make it more powerful. Would you want to do that? No.
Oh,
could you just make
such
a new
hassle.
one? Please just make a new one. But dude, like, imagine if you had the 32X, CD, and Genesis, each had to have its giant brick power supply, which is an abomination and like a fire hazard. They should not be all like, you had to get an extension cord and you had to get like, dude, those big power bricks, man, they were just the worst.
Oh, and now I'm looking at the image of, do you remember the Sega Tower that people made fun of? Like,
oh yeah,
the 32X with the Sonic and Knuckles plugged into it with
the Game Genie.
Yeah, the Game Genie. With all these stupid things.
I will love forever to this day the fact that Sega was so innovative with Sonic and Knuckles. Like, I remember seeing that and just going, what are you talking about? What do you mean you can do that? And like, you literally could just plug Sonic 3 in and play Knuckles in Sonic 3 levels, which that's a technical marvel for that time. Like, that shit is insane.
Like, some people stayed up way late trying to like code that and program that.
Right. Like,
that's a lot of hours.
Good for them, dude. Because that's just, and I mean, even I remember it didn't work with Sonic 1 for whatever reason, but it worked with 2 and 3. And then later in life, when you find out because of the internet that like Sonic and like I think it was Sonic 3 had music made by Michael Jackson in it, which is like,
oh yeah,
what? Like, Michael Jackson at the time. By the way, this is before leaving Neverland. Michael Jackson. Right. This is when Michael Jackson was the king of the world, and he made music for Sonic 3. What? That's kind of crazy to think about, but and I think that I'm pretty sure that's the reason why they've said before, like, Sonic 3 is such a license nightmare.
Right.
Like, especially now with like him being dead and like him like just figuring out the licensing, and unfortunately that's why a lot of backward compatibility doesn't happen as well. Like, every time I look at like Xbox, every time I look at Xbox One, I'm like, I want Burnout 3 now. Because Burnout 3 also had like pop punk music, and at the time I was all about that shit. I was like, yes, I want to listen to that soundtrack. Dude, I still go to Spotify and just listen to Burnout 3 soundtrack. Like, it's
That's
so
awesome.
Good.
No,
but,
it's
like,
so true though. Yeah.
That game will never happen because like getting all those songs relicensed and all that shit. Same thing with the Tony Hawk games. Everybody's like, we want Tony Hawk. And I'm like, you don't realize. Like,
it's
the music
nightmare.
is what kills it, unfortunately. So, but that didn't stop them from doing certain games because they did Crazy Taxi, and they got rid of Offspring. Like, they just took, and everybody, when they hear that song, they think Crazy Taxi, and then they rebuy Crazy Taxi, and the song's not even in there, and they're like, what are we doing? Like, unfortunately, some music is too important in a game to where, like, if they got rid of it, like, if you told me play Tony Hawk 2 without the soundtrack,
no,
I wouldn't want to. It'd be so fucking boring. It wouldn't be as good. Like, the soundtracks made those games.
That game got so many people into Bad Religion and all that stuff. Like, it's it's just how it is. Like, it's
literally like do that. My favorite band is Rise Against, and I got into them from Tony Hawk. I was like, I wouldn't have heard them if it wasn't for that game. And like I said, even like, it felt like during the PS2 Xbox era, like EA was putting the best fucking music ever in their games. Like, whoever was the head of music at EA was doing everything accurate. Like, all Maddens, like the Madden, the NHL games, Burnout, Need for Speed, like, all of them had awesome soundtracks. And I was just like, I learned about so many bands because of those games. So, unfortunately, though, it also bites us in the ass when I'm like, hey, just, you did Burnout Paradise. I'm like, okay, cool. Go back and get Burnout 3. No, we can't do that. It's too hard. Some of those bands are now working at Starbucks and shit. Like, I don't, know.
It like doubles the layer of nostalgia too, because like you have the nostalgia for discovering the band, and then the nostalgia for the game. So like it's like hand in hand. Normally you just have like nostalgia for this game from like when you were young, but now it's like a band and a game, and they're tied together.
Oh yeah, like I love when people think about like there's a documentary that's I don't think out yet, but it's called Pretending I'm Superman, and it's about Tony Hawk. And that soundtrack, and like hearing those like just how the history of basically Tony Hawk's Pro Skater happened. Oh yeah. And again, like when I hear certain songs, it just pops in your head. Like, oh, that game. That's all I hear when I hear this. So, you know. But unfortunately, like it's weird now because like the games that did it to me lately with soundtracks are Rock Band, because again, that's that's all it is. Like,
yeah,
that's
entirely.
the entire game is soundtrack. But like now, when I hear certain songs, or like there was bands I didn't know about until Rock Bands. Like,
oh yeah, totally,
you know,
same.
I was more like skater punk, pop punk, that type of stuff, and then like I won't say hard rock, but like Korn, Slipknot, like that stuff. I didn't listen to older stuff, and then I played The Who. In Rock Band, and I was like, The Who is incredible.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah,
I've never realized how great some of these bands are. Like, their music is phenomenal. But yeah, like, again, I hear certain songs, I just think Rock Band 2, Rock Band 3.
Oh yeah, totally.
Those are such good memories. So, did you, as far as it goes on Genesis, obviously you were, what were you playing then if it wasn't like the RPG style stuff? Like Sonic, obviously, but like what else were you playing?
That's a good question. I have quite a few games thinking back on it. I played a lot of Vector Man, which is a pretty cool game. It's like a hyped game.
I'm so
weird.
happy you brought up Vector Man.
Yeah. There was some. I mean, that's the thing about Sega. There's so many weird games, but like the and this is getting into my nerd music sound chip stuff. The sound chip on the Sega was this actually a synthesizer chip from a Yamaha keyboard.
Oh my
so
God.
it's got this. There's these crazy bass riffs in all these Sega games that I'm just like, I can't like unthink them. Like I'm always like remembering them, and it's like really distorted and weird. And all these like early '90s. Like I'm trying to look up. I think one was called Death Duel that I always played.
Okay.
I think that's what it was called. Like they felt like there was so many like bad. They felt like bad sci-fi movies, but games. Yeah, Death Duel was one. It was like a first-person game where it was almost like apocalyptic, and you're fighting monsters in this giant arena. But it feels so like bad 80s, 90s sci-fi, and I just loved it.
That's a cover.
Right? Yeah.
What is that? Looks like a bad 80s VHS. Wow. Look at that.
It informed so much of what I'm into now. Echo the Dolphin. Huge Echo fan. Echo fan.
And you're so right about like Sega trying everything to make they had so many IPs they were trying to make happen, and then like I'm not gonna say they weren't good, but they just like never had that sticking power. Like they never you know what I mean? Like I remember Vector Man, Comic Zone was like a big one.
Comic Zone, I loved that game. Yeah. Streets of Rage.
Like they had these Sega games that were like very prominent, and like they were trying to just throw everything there, but just like nothing wanted to stick. Sonic was like the only one that was like big and stuck around. But unfortunately, like the games, Sonic CD was amazing. It was.
Oh yeah, I never played it.
Oh my God, soundtrack on that game, by the way, so good because it was CD quality. Holy shit, it was so good. But then like after that, like the other Sonics that happened after, like just weren't as good. I mean, I never played Sonic Adventure. People told me like on Dreamcast, I never played it. People said it was good.
Same.
But like I can tell you, like a lot of Sonic games get shit on until Sonic Mania comes out, which is basically old school Sonic, and people are like, "Yeah, this is fun again." It's so sad. Like poor Sonic, poor Sega. Like I wish some of their franchise. It's weird. Some of their franchises come back, like they're redoing Toe Jam and Earl.
Right.
And I mean, I personally don't remember much on it, but I also remember a lot of the third-party games that were, like, it just seemed like, I remember Jurassic Park on Genesis was fucking awesome.
Yeah, I love that game.
They had, like, Jurassic Park, like, Rampage Edition, which was, like, violent as shit. Like, I remember it was mature rated. I'm like, wait, what? Like, this isn't part of a movie. Like, this is just a second one because of that game being so awesome.
Yeah, like how did they get away with those licenses? Like, and you know, how did they manage that?
I don't know.
Believe us, trust us.
I don't know. I remember X-Men and then Clone Wars was like X-Men 2, and dude, I remember X-Men 2 threw me off because anytime you started a Sega game, it had the Sega logo. It was just Sega, right?
Yeah.
Clone Wars didn't. When you turned it on, you just dropped into the game as a random X-Men. You're like, what? Oh, game started. Okay. There was no title screen, no menu, nothing.
Wow.
You just hit the power button and you just drop into this like snow level as a random X-Men character. And then from there is where it had everything else. I was like,
oh, that's crazy.
That is crazy. They had some definitely some cool stuff there. But unfortunately, you know, people just didn't seem to give a shit.
Yeah, they tried real hard with the marketing for Vector Man. I remember because I bought into it. Like I was like, oh, this is the next Sonic. Like this is it. Like because they were like, oh, it was like CG rendered graphics that they, like threw into the game or something like that.
Yeah, it was definitely a new way to develop because like that's where like
Yeah.
that and like Toy Story I remember had
Oh,
this
yeah.
like 3D on a 2D plane type of deal.
Yep.
It was like weird looking, but I remember them trying
Yeah.
that for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, Vector Man wasn't bad, but it wasn't anything great. Like, it was okay. It was an okay game. Yeah,
Like
like
got a sequel.
that's true. It's true. It did. I never played that one, but I always responded really well to the still classic like pixel animation games. The one that sticks out to me, and it was one of those points with Sega where I was like, "Holy shit! Who allows this?" Was the Splatterhouse games.
Yeah, that was
had-
like holy
yeah.
shit.
I had this friend who was just I knew he was a weird kid, and we were like, this is like fifth and sixth grade, and I'm like, hey dude, you want to sleep over? And it was like the only time he slept over, the only time we hung out outside of school, and he had Splatterhouse, and I was just like, yo, this kid's really weird, and I'm like, but I like it, he's awesome, and he just showed me Splatterhouse, and I like, because I just as much as I like playing games, I like watching people play them. Like it's
Right.
super. I've been doing that since I was young, and I just was like, dude, keep playing. I'm like enthralled by this. This is insane.
Dude, that's hilarious. I like that. Like this kid's fucking weird. Like,
Yeah.
Like this kid is extra weird because he has
Yeah.
this. That's how I felt with like, and it wasn't even that bad, but like the Beavis and Butthead game was like,
Yeah.
it was fucking crazy. Like for the
absurd.
time, it was just like, wow, look at all
Yeah.
this shit that's going on. Like, okay then. That was definitely the point where like, I remember renting that, but I didn't rent it at my house because my mom would have been like, absolutely not. And I remember my buddy Gary, his mom was, everybody had that friend who had that mom that was just like, fuck it, do what you
Yeah.
want, who cares? You guys want to watch like Friday the 13th?
Like go
You're
for it.
9, sure,
Yeah.
why not? Like she
Yeah.
just did not care.
Yep.
And but for sure, like I remember playing that and I was just like, oh my god, look at this game. Like what are we doing right now?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean,
Good.
I applaud. I remember like I can't remember if it was a real thing or not, but I remember them trying to bring back Vector Man as like a PS2 game or something. Like
Really?
yeah, there was a Vector Man 3 that was for PS2 and Saturn. What?
Oh,
But
sad.
yeah, it's like it was a canceled game. It even says like once in development by Blue Sky Software and published by Sega.
Wow.
Yeah, like there was like concept for it and shit. Like an alpha or something was available for it, but like, yeah, it's weird. Like I mean, it's funny because I can imagine that game now being not necessarily like hard to do, but I mean just way easier.
Yeah.
I mean, him.
Oh, yeah.
The thing is, that's kind of what Knack was, though. Like, Knack was just this character. You get more little items, and he turns bigger and turns into
Yep.
items. Like, except for Knack really sucks. So maybe we don't need Vector Man. Like, Knack is bad.
The other crazy game I had, and I remember, this is one one of the first times I ordered a game in the mail and like got it delivered, was the game Balls. Do you remember that one?
No,
Dude, you got to look it up. It's Balls with a Z.
of
and
course it was
Sega.
with a Z
Yeah.
because it
Oh,
was
yeah.
the fucking 90s.
So it was a fighting game where all the characters, and this is the same thing as Vector Man. It looks like they made 3D spheres and then rendered them down to 2D, but they kind of had this 3D effect in the game. But it was a fighting game, but it had to at least be like what was it at the time? MA13. That was the rating that they had back
Yeah.
then. Because first off, it's called Balls, and then like there's a lot of juvenile humor to it. Like some of the moves were just absurd.
I am looking at it, and yeah, it's like you're right though. Like the characters just look like a collection of balls.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
And not those balls, but just like actual balls. Like
Yeah.
it's just wow. And it is MA13, and yeah, dude, there's so many immature games. There was a Ren and Stimpy game for Genesis.
Yeah.
Like, but no, like the Beavis and Butthead game, I'm almost positive that was 100% like MA17.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
they were
Oh,
like-
yeah.
Or no, that even was MA13. I remember they had a rating for 17, I believe. Like,
Right. Yeah, MA17, right? That's
I'm
what you said?
almost positive they had one. I think it was like MA17, I think, and I don't know if it just was on very, very few games, but like, yeah, MA17, because it was on Mortal Kombat 2. Like, that was dude, Beavis and Butthead was rated MA13?
Wow. Yeah, that's nuts.
How was that not rated that? But yeah, like MA13, but then yeah, after I think 2 and especially 3, they were like, Yeah, this is 17. Like, you're
Yep.
doing some crazy shit now.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
and it got just better in graphics and stuff like that. And
Oh yeah.
it's so funny to think back, though, like, now, looking at Mortal Kombat going, I get why you think that's real violent and all, but it's not very realistic. It's graphic.
No.
Again, at the time, graphics were like, holy shit. But now you look at it and like, that's real funny. Now, if you
Yeah,
look at
it's
Mortal
goofy.
Kombat 11 fatalities, you're like, oh my God.
You're like,
This is-
oh wow,
the,
jeez.
the best way I can describe it is medically accurate. Like,
Yeah,
it is
exactly.
fucking horrifying.
Yeah, it's funny. We were talking about this with a couple friends of mine recently. It's like having lived through all the Mortal Kombats. Like it was like realistic at the time, and then it got silly with 2 and 3 with
Right.
babalities and all that. And it got silly. Like their first 3D one, they were trying to be serious. I
Right.
think Mortal Kombat 4, but like it just looks so goofy. It just looks so silly.
Yeah, when Mortal Kombat went 3D, it got weird.
Yeah.
And I mean,
But they
I
like
get the
eventually
trend.
embraced it. Yeah, and they eventually embraced the silliness.
Yeah.
And then it got real again, and the graphics got better, and it felt real. And I was like, "Ooh!" Like the first time they started doing the bone breaking,
Yeah.
zoom ins. But it just feels silly again, like on purpose. Like they're like leaning into it, which is awesome. Like I think that's.
I'm also
the way
happy
it
they
should
went
be.
back to 2D and like the 3D. I remember it was Mortal Kombat 4 was like the first Mortal Kombat game that I remember playing, and I was just like, ugh, like I don't like this. Like,
Yeah.
and again, it was like I get where they embrace like 3D because at the time Virtual Fighter and Tekken and like all these like started happening to the point where there was like 3D fighting games, but like, dude,
Yeah.
nobody talks about 4 ever,
Right.
like ever. But yeah, now they've gotten to the point where they don't have the. I don't think they have babalities or anything like that right now
Right.
in the new games. But like, I'm sorry, but Johnny Cage, when I was looking at all of his fatalities in the new game, they're fucking amazing. They're so
Yeah.
funny. Like,
Yeah.
he uppercuts the shit out of this dude and goes, I didn't like that take. And then there's just like a marker, take 2, click. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is amazing. This is like
Yeah.
the greatest. And it's like take 160 and the dude's head is like barely hanging on.
Like they get it. They know what people want to see, and like they just lean into the ridiculousness of their own game. And I'm like, yeah, that's what makes people buy it and come back.
Of course. I also like how they started going with some of them, like when they added like Freddy Krueger. I'm like,
Oh,
yes, that's where you want some shit. Like, start doing
Right.
those types of things.
Yeah.
I would love to see those, and I can't wait to see who they have. I'm assuming E3 they'll announce like
I'll have
some
to, yeah.
licensed person will be in the game. There was a rumor that Ash from like Evil Dead was gonna be in
Really?
there, and I was like,
That's pretty good.
that could be
That's
real
pretty
fucking
good.
good. And then
Yeah.
apparently Bruce Campbell went on Twitter and was like, no. But I'm like, shut up. You could be lying.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like, Ash in that game would be great because he'd be over the
Chain
top
gun
and
or
ridiculous.
chainsaw and shotgun.
And if anybody hasn't watched Ash versus Evil Dead, like that Star series that was on, it was awesome, and it was so over the top, bloody, gory, violent. And it was like real life Mortal Kombat. Like somebody's
yeah,
hand
yeah,
would get
yeah.
cut off, and there was just like a gallon of blood that was flying everywhere. I'm just like, what is this?
Coating the walls and stuff.
Exactly. So, and as far as it goes, back then though, graphically, it was amazing at the time, but you look back and it's silly now. You're like, dude, really? We freaked out over this. Parents,
Yeah.
fucking Tipper Gore lost her shit over this. Okay, cool.
Yep.
So as you were progressing from Genesis, you went to
Yeah.
Saturn, of course, right? Because that's what every
No,
Sega fan did.
No, I went to 64.
Oh, okay. Because by
Yeah.
the way, that was a joke. Nobody fucking bought Saturn. That thing was bad. No one bought that thing. So N64. What
Yeah.
what led you to that?
That again, I mean, like I'll admit this. I buy into the hype. I bought into the hype a lot. Maybe not so much anymore, but like, the first batch of 64s, there was like a limited quantity of them.
Yep.
I think when they released them, and I was like, Mom, I need one. And she was just like, hell yeah. Like she was
Nice.
all about it.
That's the best part about all of this is your mom probably went hell yeah to a lot of your
Yeah.
your questions. Not
Yeah.
here we go.
Yeah.
Here he wants this new one. Your mom's like, hell yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
Mario 64 looks awesome.
Cause we went to a mall, and by the way, mall from where I grew up was like an hour away. We had to drive to the mall.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
it was Adirondacks and stuff. But like they had in the Sears, the Macy's or something, they had a kiosk with 64. And, walking up to it, this is like my first time seeing a 3D game. And I'm just like, I don't know, 11, 12? I can't remember how old.
Something like
but
that,
I was just like, what the fuck is this? Like, how do I play this? Like,
right?
Like never, this is the,
also,
this is the Mario
getting controller, and you were like, how do I hold this? Because that's what everybody
Does this thing
did.
fly? Like, what is this thing?
How do you hold it? Do I need a third hand? Like, what the fuck do I do?
Yeah. But it was the Mario getting the flower situation all over again. I'm just like, oh my God, like, this is nuts. But I showed it to her and she's like, wow, she's like, all right, yeah, let's do it. And so, that was, I think they came out in like the fall, and, I got one for Christmas or something. I think it was.
Nice.
Cause I always forget, cause my birthday's right after Christmas. So,
oh,
sometimes
no.
it's like, I get like, well, no, it was good. Cause I would like get things vice versa, or, like I would get, an additional game for the system I got for Christmas or something like that.
Okay, so at least your parents were cool enough to like try to separate it and stuff, because like my brother-in-law's birthday is December 30th and he hates it. He's like, I got fucked every year. They tried to say, oh, this is not but we're going to separate, and he's like, it didn't matter. I got screwed every year. But also too, you kind of had, well, in your case, you probably didn't have to wait long because you were like, hey mom, check out this cool game. And she's like, yeah, let's go. Like, let's just go get it.
Pretty much. Yeah. Yeah. But I remember the crazy thing is, so I had a small TV in my bedroom that I had for my Sega hooked up to.
Right.
But it only had the coaxial, right?
Of course.
The old, it didn't have the RCA plugs. So I got the Nintendo 64, and that only came with RCA, and I was like, I didn't really know the difference.
Right.
So like I go to plug it in, I'm like, yeah, Christmas morning, let's plug it in.
Oh no.
And I'm just like, oh shit, like little like kid me is like, oh no, what do I do? Like all the stores are closed today.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, as soon as you said
yeah.
Christmas morning, I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, and my dad, Super Champ, he comes in, he's like, oh, we can plug it into the living room TV, and he's like, awesome letting me play on like basically what is his TV that he watches all day on Christmas, like in the morning, like, for the first 6-7 hours of Christmas Day, I'm just sitting in front of the large TV playing.
Nice.
I got Mario 64 and I got Wave Race, which was a ton of fun.
Of course.
But yeah, that system, that's the one that, I was getting into my teen years. I played a ton of, especially the Zeldas, and then obviously with it being 4 controller ports, a ton of multiplayer games.
Yes.
Started to get more into those. Mario Kart, GoldenEye, all the big ones. It was like a ton of fun. And all my friends had it too. We all kind of got it. We all traded games, that sort of thing.
Right. I was going to say, like, I mean, around that time, that's where obviously co-op, like, yep. I don't want to say Nintendo forced 4 players on people, but they did. Like,
oh yeah,
so many games had 4 players that didn't even need to have 4 players, but they made it work still. Like, I still love the fact that, like, there was just games that were like 4 player that don't need it. Like, why? Yeah. But again, like, I think after the success of like, when you see one 4 player game work, Nintendo was probably, let's just say, very encouraging. Like, hey, oh, yeah, you should make this a 4 player game.
Yeah. You should add another mode.
Exactly. Yeah. Just add a multiplayer mode. Why? This is Zelda. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
No, like, they didn't do it with that. But I mean, like, that's also too, though. I mean, I think that's where the big divide happened when it came to like game development, because obviously there was a lot of shit on PlayStation that wasn't on 64. But then 64 was focusing on that like couch co-op multiplayer shit, to where like just depending on what system you had kind of showed what kind of games you had. The problem is you also talk about single player games, and again, like, I'm not going to say what 64 didn't have them, but like PlayStation had all your RPGs, like every RPG.
Yeah.
Like,
and that was the thing, because I got that when I was like just entering my teens, but when I had my own job, I must have been like 17. I bought my own PlayStation.
There you go.
Because of that, all my buds that did have one were like, yo, you got to play Final Fantasy VII. Yo, you got to play, all these other RPGs that are on there. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones.
I felt like they were coming out.
Xenogears.
There was RPGs coming out like every week. Like, I felt like
absurd.
There was just new RPGs all the time on that thing.
And I think my thinking was like, oh, Chrono Trigger was on Super Nintendo. I got to get a Nintendo 64 to play RPGs. Like, that's where all the SquareSoft games are going to come out. And
right.
They jump ship.
They jump ship hard. And I felt so bad because, like, if you liked those RPGs, like, 64 never even really got them. Like, even down the road never got them. And I'm just like,
Yeah,
man.
it had one called, what the hell was it? Quest 64.
Quest 64.
That
yeah.
was like it was hyped for the longest time, and I was like, nah, like it just didn't look
Right.
appealing. I was like, ugh, no, that's not what I want.
Yeah, my favorite part was basically with that thing is that it was probably just in every magazine, like, holy shit, there's an RPG on 64. And
Yeah.
like, that's like
Yeah,
every magazine
that's
was
the
just
one.
happy to have an RPG on 64, basically.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, so I mean,
man.
the Zeldas were the closest you kind of got in an action RPG, I guess.
Basically.
Which I loved. They were awesome.
Yeah, because I mean, if you Google search a list of RPGs on N64, Paper Mario, okay,
Oh yeah,
that
Yeah,
makes
yeah.
sense. There was like a couple other ones, but like, here's how bad it is. I just Google searched RPG on N64, Zelda, Quest 64, Paper Mario, Ogre Battle, but then after that, PlayStation games start showing up. Gauntlet Legends, Mega Man Legends, like there's,
Yeah, yeah.
you know what I mean? Come on, dude. There just wasn't a whole lot of them,
No.
as compared to, oh my god, the list is like 10 games, dude. Right here,
Yeah,
like
it's sad.
list of N64 role-playing games. Quest 64, they're considering the Zelda games as RPGs.
Yeah.
Gauntlet Legends, Paper Mario, Mega Man 64, which, okay. Aiden Chronicles. And that's literally like, there's a lot of the other ones are like Japan only. There's nothing on that thing. And if I Google
Yeah.
search a list of RPGs on PS1, my computer would break loading them. Like,
Right.
there's so many more on that
doesn't end.
system.
And
So-
that's honestly, that's like all I bought for PlayStation was
I can
just like,
imagine,
you know,
yeah.
the whole Square catalog.
Yeah, basically with Square and Enix, and then they combined, and it's just like, yeah, let's just get all of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember that was when, because I was playing Pokemon quite a bit, but then like, again, marketing, it felt like Final Fantasy VII was like a RPG more for grown-ups and adults.
Oh,
You know what
yeah,
I mean? Instead of
exactly.
like a kid like aimed RPG is like what Pokemon kind of was acting like.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, like I remember playing that and I was just like, holy shit, this is amazing. And
Yeah.
I personally never got a 64. My sister did, but way later in the life cycle. But at that time, like I was so into PlayStation, like just overall, like Metal Gear, Resident Evil, Silent Hill, like all of those were just grabbing my attention. And again, they're all single player games. But what's funny is my buddies and I would do hand the controller off and shit. Like that's all we did. We would just watch each
Yeah.
other beat Metal Gear over and over and over again
Yep.
because we loved it so much.
Yep. Yeah. Super good. Super good.
Super fun times. And the only thing I remember playing on 64, like very much, was the wrestling games, like the WWF wrestling games, because
'Cause you could
they're
make your own
amazing. Yes,
Yeah.
they're so good. And like comparing those to the PlayStation games, like I had the PlayStation wrestling games, but they were all nowhere near as good as the 64.
They
games.
weren't as
So
good.
anytime my buddy's like, "Hey, I got No Mercy," I'm like, "Cool." So I'm
Yeah.
staying the night
Yeah.
all weekend because we're fucking
Yep.
going nuts, and we're just gonna
And then
play
this is they came out. This is like the early days of the internet too. We found lists of like here's the you know, where you want to set the sliders for making your own
Right.
character to have Sub-Zero and to have Scorpion, and we'd make like all these goofy ass characters that looked sort of like, you know, Scorpion, who had like a motocross mask on that was yellow, and we were like,
exactly.
yeah, let's
That's about as
fight.
close as you can get. Didn't you know that Sub-Zero used to Stone Cold stun people as well? Like that's God, yeah. Stone Cold stole it from Sub-Zero. Duh.
It's canon. It's in the lore.
Exactly. So at this point in time, you were mentioning like getting to the point where you're having like your own money. So when
Yeah.
PS2, Xbox, GameCube happened, did you just go nuts and just get them all?
No. So I got a PS2 when I was in college. You know, I brought my PS1 to college. But then I got really into the Soul Reaver, Reaver games.
Soul Reaver
And
games
then-
are great.
Yeah. And so I wanted the new one, Soul Reaver 2, which was on PS2.
Right.
So I'm like, all right, getting a PS2, and that's the only reason I bought that one. Just pretty much just for that game.
Right.
And funny enough, I still have that PS2, and it still works, which is nuts because this is like
Is that the fat
2002.
PS2? Like,
Oh, yeah.
my
Oh, yeah.
God. I'm
Big
surprised
boy.
that thing works. I worked at a video game store, and those things, especially when the later games started coming out and they were dual layer discs instead of like single layer DVDs, when they were dual layer DVDs, fucking PS2s were just breaking left and right. Like they just couldn't
Yeah.
handle a dual layer disc.
Yeah, I don't know. It's still kicking. So
Nice. That's
we'll
awesome.
see. But yeah, funny enough, I had that, and then I entered this weird phase where I almost became, and this was a kind of a divide at this time. Like online multiplayer games were starting to get popular.
Right.
You know, once the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 came out, I feel like, you know, online gaming became much more of a popular thing.
Oh, of course.
I kind of like dropped off gaming. I was kind of like, I don't want to say ashamed, but I didn't talk about it. I didn't talk to people about playing games. Not a lot of my friends were playing games. So I pretty much completely stopped playing games for like a couple of years.
Wow.
But then I bought a DS Lite, and this has to be around like 2006 or 7. And I bought a game for it, and I was like, yeah, maybe I'll play this. It was like some RPG. Oh, it was the World Ends With You. It's like a super JRPG game.
From
and I'm like,
Kingdom Hearts. Yep.
Yeah. It was a good game. I liked it. But I didn't play it a lot. I played it a little bit, and then I got really sick for like a week, and I like took off of work, and I was just like bedridden, like bad fever and everything. And my wife or girlfriend at the time was like, hey, you know, why don't I go pick you up a game so you can play something in bed? And so she went out and got me the Zelda game, Phantom Hourglass, I think it was. For DS.
Phantom Hourglass was
the first one, right?
I'm trying to remember. I remember Phantom Hourglass is definitely a Zelda game. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, it was. That was the one on DS, right? Mm-hmm.
So she got me that, and like, yeah, I was bedridden, so I was just playing it, and it kind of like, you know, rekindled this love for games. I was just like, all right, I have to admit it. Like, I really like video games. Like,
right.
I'm an adult who really likes video games. Like, this isn't just me having a crazy fever right now. This is me, like, really, right. really enjoying throwing a boomerang in Zelda a lot.
Yeah. It sucked that, like, games had that, like, kind of stigma of, like, it's a kid thing. Like, no, like, right. Now grandmas play that shit. As soon as the Wii happened, that shit was... I think that stigma was gone around that time. Like, hey, everybody can play games.
Yeah, exactly. And it was just like, I'm like, all right, you know, this is a thing. I like these. You know, I'm gonna embrace it. I'm gonna talk to people about it. I like playing games. So it was like, I want to say it was like a 3 or 4 year break there where I didn't play anything. Kind of the span of the PS3 and Xbox 360.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, so like the heyday of those generations, you just kind of like skipped out on. Yeah. Yeah,
totally didn't play any of those. And didn't, you know, never was like a PC gamer or anything either.
Me neither. I never got into it. Also, my family was broke and never had an awesome PC to play cool shit.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Same. Yeah, we didn't get our first computer till I was like 16 or 17. And, I had like DOS games, you know, because that could run. Like that was it. But at the time, a friend of mine lived upstairs. This is like a year later after the whole fever thing. And I was always a Mac person because I was a graphic designer, so I always had Macintoshes or Apples rather. And at the time, I had a Mac Mini, and this was right when they started using the Intel chips, so you could install Windows on them.
Right.
And he's like, hey, I got a copy of Windows lying around. You want that? And you want what's it called? Borderlands? And I'm like, what's Borderlands?
Oh my god.
He's like, I got you. And he installed Windows and installed a copy of Borderlands, and that's like the new era. That's when like the new era of games started for me. I was just like, holy shit, I've been missing out. Like, what is going on? Like, you know, I was still playing, like I said, Zelda. You know, like I was used to DS graphics, and before that, it was PS2. And yeah, that just
the jump to HD is a big deal. Like that was so
hit me hard, and I just went nuts. You know, immediately after that Fallout, immediately after that Dead Space. You know, just playing games on my PC, like everything I hadn't played. You know, Mass Effect. Just you know, ravenous.
Hitting just as much of the backlog as you could.
Oh yeah, it was good. Good.
That's kind of how I had. For me, it was a same thing except for during high school. It was PS2 PS2 Xbox GameCube that I missed out on because skateboarding happened, and I was 4 years I didn't care about video games. I just didn't.
Yeah,
and then I got a job at a video game store, and like the PS2 generation and all that was still fully happening. So like when I got the job at the game store, all of a sudden I was just like, holy shit, I haven't played this 4-year gap of games. And I was just like, the good thing is you miss that shitty period where like you buy a console day one and then you're waiting for the next big game and you're waiting for the next big game. I didn't have that because by the time I had it, they were out for 3 or 4 years and I was already just, what's the best shit on Xbox?
Right.
Had it all to me right away. So that was just like, my experience with that. But no, I worked during the 360 launch and
nice.
I remember when Microsoft brought in the Xbox, and then I worked at a video game store called Game Crazy, which was Hollywood Video had like this. Yeah. So we had these TVs, and they were just tube TVs. They were like 13-inch TVs, one for PS2, Xbox, GameCube. When 360 came out, Microsoft comes in, and he brought in this humongous ass box. I'm like, what is this? I'm like, that's not the new Xboxes. He's like, no. He took down the tube TV and put up like a 25-inch Samsung HD TV. And I was like, okay, hooks it up, and I'm just fucking blown away. I'm like, what is going on right now? This is insane. And I remember the one game that literally, and it came out like shortly after the launch of 360, but Fight Night Round 3 was a boxing game. And like, and again, I don't give a shit about boxing at the time. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
But when you see a dude get hit in the face and his whole face shift and like, you can see the sweat flying off his head, I'm like, people literally like played that demo and immediately came to the counter and went, I want a 360 in that game. Like now.
It's nuts.
And it was just insane. But that was like that huge jump from like non-HD to like full HD graphics, widescreen, all that. And I remember there were games like if you hooked up a 360 to a standard def TV, like Dead Rising's text was so small you couldn't fucking read it. Like
just smashed together.
Exactly. Like they just couldn't figure out. They didn't figure it out for that. So yeah, there was. But no, dude. Like that whole generation. I can't imagine like 4 years. Like 360 day one was like a fucking eye opener. 4 years into it, you're getting like Gears 2. Gears 3, like the better looking shit on that console. So that's insane.
It was killer.
Yeah.
It was killer.
I looked, by the way, fun fact, I looked up Soul Reaver 2. Amy Hennig was a writer on Soul Reaver 2.
Well, she worked on the whole Reaver series.
That's, I did not know that. That's fucking crazy, dude.
Yeah. I was lucky enough to, she actually came to Rochester to do this talk, and I met her. This was in the fall, and I was like, everybody goes up to Amy and they're like, Amy, Uncharted, and I was like, Amy, I love the Soul Reaver series.
Like,
so I'm like,
seriously,
that changed my teenage life.
She acted as a writer, a director, producer, and writer of Soul Reaver. She also directed and wrote Soul Reaver 2 and Legacy of Kain Defiance. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Dude, good for you. Also, fuck you, EA, for canceling her game, because
I know. Like the Star Wars one.
So here's the thing, real fast. Like, I'm happy about Respawn because I love Respawn to death as a company, right? Respawn did Titanfall. They're so fucking good. Apex is literally what I just want to play all day now. Like, Apex is such a fun game. When her game got canceled, and I was like, that's really shitty because it probably could have been really good. But then, like, that game got announced and it didn't get canceled and it's getting all this hype. And I'm like, either that game, the only thing I can think of is that game had to be in like the worst fucking shape ever. Like, similar to what happened with Scalebound, like with Xbox, how like they had a E3 demo, they had all this shit, and then they straight go from like a fully working demo and all that shit and at conferences to just canceled.
Yeah.
Like, something was obviously very wrong, but I'm just bummed out that like her game got shit canned, and then they're like, oh, by the way, here's Respawn, and they're having this single player, and it looks awesome. Like,
right, yeah,
it looks so good. I'm just like, man, what would Amy's game have been?
That's. I just wanted Amy on a Star Wars game. I wanted that voice. Like, the writing in all those games is just killer. And I wanted her voice in that world for at least one game. It would have been nice.
Right, but
I know she's doing new shit now. She was talking about some VR stuff.
Yeah, that's it's actually right here. Hennig announced that following June that she had left EA in January and started a small studio to explore options involving virtual reality games.
Yeah.
Dude, I had no idea she did the Soul Reaver shit. Like, good for her, because Soul Reaver 1 was so... I remember playing the demo for that game and falling in love. I was like, this is the shit.
It was
this
dark
game is awesome.
and kind of fucked up, but it was like, again, it's that I've always been in the horror shit and stuff, so it fed that need. Like, you're taking these like dead, like gross vampires and like throwing them on stakes, right? And I was just like, yo, this rules.
Dude, and like when you jump out, like just jump and like you just float, like you do that.
Yep.
I'm like,
yep.
Dude, he just seemed like such an awesome character. But again, like it's funny because like I never even got a chance to go play the Soul Reaver, the Soul Reaver 2. First one I played, I never played Soul Reaver 2, but yeah, my father-in-law was actually into those games as well. He's like, yeah, dude, these games are awesome.
Yeah, definitely good. Definitely good stuff.
So at that time, obviously you had the Mac Mini with a PC. So did you ever get any of the actual consoles like after realizing like, holy shit, look what I've been missing?
No, I didn't get an Xbox 360 or PS3. I just played everything PC. Like I'm still play games on the PC, but that was like I got all of those games that way, unless they were exclusives. Obviously, like I never actually played any of the Gears of War. I'm trying to think of some of the other exclusives from that era, but I did. In the past couple of years, I picked up a PS4 specifically for the exclusives on that one.
Right. Well, I mean,
primarily was PC gaming.
I was going to say, well, the other thing too is, if you have a pretty awesome PC, the way that Microsoft's strategy is now, you don't really need an Xbox because like all of the better exclusives are going to PC. So like, I mean, I'm not even going to shit on that at all because Microsoft. Everybody should realize software makes more money than hardware ever will. Period. And so, Microsoft realized that, and they were like, when they did that, they were like, yeah, we're just putting our shit on PC. Everybody was like, oh, Microsoft's losing, they're failing, nobody's going to buy an Xbox anymore. But they're like, they just created 100 million other people that can buy Gears 4 now.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
yeah, exactly.
What are you talking about right now? Like, they just open up their gaming catalog to that. And if they actually do like a full-on Game Pass for PC, holy shit.
Oh, jeez. That's going to be the end of it.
Super good.
But yeah, I think it's like, part of PC gaming too is just like the like constant tweaking. Like if you like that stuff, PC gaming is great. If you just want to like play your friggin' game, like get an Xbox. Like that's what I've told people who are like, should I get an Xbox or PC or what? I'm like, do you want to like, worry about your graphics card in a year? Or do you want to worry about like, tweaking the game for 2 hours before you actually play it?
Right. It's just the easy solution. It's just like plug in, it works.
Yep.
Done. Like
it looks the best it's gonna look.
Yeah, the game update doesn't work with this graphics card, or you have to tweak this and this. Nope.
Yeah.
The shit just works. Like it's
Yep.
as easy as it is. So I mean, for people though, when they say like, oh, I have a PS4 and I have a PC, I'm not even mad. I'm just like, you're good. I mean, definitely get a Switch, but you're good. Yeah. Like you with the PS4 exclusives, that's the one thing that like. Them having those PS4 exclusives, and some of them even went to PC recently, like when they did Heavy Rain, and
that's right.
I was just weirded out by that for sure. I was like, "Whoa, like that's okay then." Again, I don't think though you'll ever get your Uncharted's or your God of War's on PC. Like I doubt that will ever happen because Sony knows those are the reasons why people buy this hardware.
The heavy hitters,
right? Exactly. So I doubt that'll ever happen. But yeah, I got weirded out when I saw that. I think it was Heavy Rain, Detroit, and. I don't know if Detroit did, but Beyond Two Souls, like those before PlayStation exclusives.
Narrative ones.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, good for them, though. Again, I'm never going to shit on that. Like, get your game on as many platforms as you can, let people experience it, and then, just have fun playing games. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like I said, you had PC. You got a PS4. Did you ever mess with the Wii U, Switch, any of those?
Yeah, I got... a Wii much later, like around the same time that I got I got into PC gaming. Again, well, I should say around the time I got back into Zelda, where I kind of like embraced gaming. Right. I'm like, all right, let me pick up some of the things I missed out, and I got a Wii like a year later. This is 2010 too, which 4 or 5 years into the Wii's life cycle. I'm like, what have I been missing out on? So I messed around with that for a little bit. Funny enough, I played that a lot maybe 4 years ago. I just started buying up cheap Wii games that I missed out on, and just started hammering through them. But that's I haven't played it too much lately. But I messed around with that a little bit, but it was mostly again the PC stuff, PC and a little bit of handheld. primarily that. Funny enough, I bought the PS4 specifically for Final Fantasy 15 because it was an exclusive,
Right.
and I'm like, I need those pretty boys driving cars around. I need to play that game.
And then
Well,
didn't they
suck
release
right
it
in.
on PC?
Yeah, they did a year later, I think. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I it's hard. Like what's weird now is like I've gotten to the point where if it's a Sony studio or if it's Rockstar, it's sketchy if it goes to PC or not. Like,
Yep.
because for whatever reason, Grand Theft Auto went to PC. Red Dead, they just fucking hate going to PC. Like Redemption never never went. Revolver never went from what I remember. I don't think Revolver ever went. But Redemption and 2, like, just ignored. Like,
Yeah.
you did Grand Theft Auto 4 and 5. Why don't you just do Red Dead 2? Because, I can't even imagine Red Dead 4K. That would make your computer
Right.
melt. But
Yeah.
your computer would just catch fire as soon as you
Yep.
start up the game. But it's just crazy that they just... but also Sony Studios. But otherwise, like, now it's very much possible that a game, if it's not an exclusive like that, will go to PC. Like, Final
Yeah.
Fantasy and stuff. Like when that went to
Yeah.
PC.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, and I've mostly been buying exclusives for it. I got Bloodborne, Last of Us. Obviously, I had to play that.
yes, that's a good one to come back
yeah.
on because if you
And I got
missed
the
it,
HD. I got the HD remake. So like, I didn't even have to play the
Right.
remastered version, I should say.
Yeah, you played
and-
the ultimate, the better version,
Yep.
the one optimized
Yep.
for PS4. Right.
And right now, actually, I'm playing Horizon Zero Dawn, which
Such
is
a good game.
fuck. I'm like 60 hours in, and I'm like, holy shit! It's been a long time since I played a game this long.
Yeah.
and I'm loving it. I'm not even sick of it. It's
yeah,
great.
I literally, for me, I have all of the above because I feel like you should to experience all the things that are great in
Yes.
gaming.
Yes.
But my PlayStation is 1000% an exclusive machine. Like I prefer my
Yep.
Xbox overall. But like Horizon is so good. Like
It is. Yeah.
it's ridiculous good. And
Yeah.
then God of War was awesome. Spider-Man
Oh yeah, I
is
need to play that.
yeah, Spider-Man is literally the best superhero game I've ever played. Like, I thought it was Batman, but fuck that. Like,
It's Spider-Man.
Spider-Man's so good. That was the first platinum I got on PlayStation. Like, I couldn't
nice.
stop. Even
Yeah.
like, I loved Horizon, but like, after Horizon was done, there was just like other shit, like, ready to play. So I played and beat Horizon, and I was like, all right, cool. I'm gonna go start playing other things. When I beat Spider-Man, I was like, I don't want this to end. And I just kept playing and playing and playing and playing until it was
That's
like,
awesome.
to the point where I was like, all right, I have the platinum. I've gotten everything. All right,
Yeah.
now I can stop playing it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, if you haven't played God of War, Spider-Man, the Uncharted series is also really fun. So,
Yeah, I played the first two. I got the trilogy for
Right.
PS4.
Yeah.
I played the first two.
yeah. And I mean,
It's fun.
yeah, those are fun. 4's fun. Like, that's the thing is like some people like think Uncharted's literally like top tier amazing games. Like they're fun, but they're basically Indiana Jones movies. Like,
Yeah, totally.
yeah, like as Horizon, I preferred Horizon over any of those.
yeah.
Like, because like the best thing, and it was like 2 words: robot dinosaurs.
Yeah, exactly.
Explain this to me, Horizon game. And when they did, I was like, holy shit.
You're like, sold. I'll take 10.
This is so good.
Yeah.
So yeah, dude, like I'm just super happy that I'm glad that they still give a shit basically about the single player game. Like, and I'm not saying
Yeah.
Xbox doesn't, but obviously Xbox tends to have a focus on, sure, they're single player, but then like really fun multiplayer, really.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
they-
yeah, totally.
They know that their bread is buttered on the multiplayer stuff, so like
Yep.
they want to make sure they have that there. So, yeah, as far as Gears of War goes, you can play 4. Like, Gears
That's
is
true.
fun.
Yeah.
Gears
Yeah.
is a good game.
Yeah, I've been thinking about those with that one, and obviously God of War, the two that have been kind of like floating on my radar. For what's up next?
Definitely, yeah. God of War. If you give a shit about superhero games, Spider-Man's just ridiculous. Like, it's
Yeah.
so good. It is literally like one of my favorite games on that console. Like, when I think
Nice.
top 3, it would probably be actually Spider-Man, Horizon, then probably Uncharted 4.
Nice.
Like,
Nice.
it's funny. God of War is a great game, and I'm not shitting on God of War. I hate mythology. All like Greek mythology, like
Yeah.
Norse mythology, fuck all that. I just have never been interested in like fantasies and goblins and elves and
Oh,
shit. Like,
that's so funny.
ever. So I mean, I'm playing God of War, and I'm like, okay, like the gameplay's great and the story, the characters are good, but like they start talking all these wild stories of like all these
Hades.
mythological. Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, I don't fucking care about any of this. Like, example, Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor. Amazing games. They're based on Lord of the Rings, which I don't like. So every time there was a cutscene, I just fucking skipped it. I didn't care. I was just like, get me back to the gameplay because the gameplay's so good. I could play this over and over. But yeah, I don't know what happened in the story of those games. I 100%ed both of them, but I don't know the story of them. Don't ask me.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
I eat that. I don't know, man. I eat that shit up. All that mythology fantasy shit, like I can't get enough of it. It's
See, for me, what gets me is sci-fi, and that's why Horizon is just like,
Same.
so up there when it comes to it. Like, as soon as like Horizon introduced that like sci-fi style element, I was like, this is why this game is just ridiculously good. And that storytelling's great. And I'm almost positive there's going to be a sequel just based off sales and stuff. So it'll be on PS5, obviously. Like, good for them. Oh, by the way, might be one of the prettiest games I've ever seen in HDR, like 4K. It's fucking gorgeous. So
it's nuts. It's like you're running around at night and like the moon shining, and I'm just like, Jesus Christ! Like,
there was a lot of moments where I was just like, Jesus Christ, look at this. This is ridiculous. So, but now what's funny is you've gotten to the point where gaming has become such a passion of yours that you actually kind of help make games.
Yeah. So, well, I used to write music for some indie game developers here in Rochester. And through that, I kind of got turned on to just like the whole indie scene, like, in indie games,
right.
Some of the programs to make them. So I started doing that. And through that, I started essentially a meetup, a monthly meetup in Rochester called Rock Game Dev. So ROC is an abbreviation Rochester people use a lot, just Rock.
Right.
So it's called Rock Game Dev, monthly meetup. And that kind of snowballed real quick. And I got on the radar of some local people and then on the radar of a college here called Rochester Institute of Technology, or RIT, who has one of the top game design degrees programs in the country.
Nice.
So they're doing big things. All their grad students are going, to work at Microsoft, to work at we have students at Epic. One of my students worked on Spider-Man, actually. She did the shaders. They did the shaders for...
she did a fantastic job.
Will do. But we got students all over. Anyway, they had a what do you call it? A grant come through for... basically to help grow the local game industry, because we got these killer students, but unfortunately we ship a lot of them out.
Right.
A lot of them leave the state. So it's basically focusing on keeping some of these students here, also helping the local companies and studios that are here. So that's kind of what I do every day. I just talk about making games, and talk to people about making games. Which is a pretty killer gig.
Yeah, to have that become like an actual job of yours is, that's amazing. That's great. Like, and imagine for 3 or 4 years, you didn't give a shit about games.
Right. Exactly.
Like, you didn't care at all about games. And then all of a sudden to come full circle and now this being like your actual job, that's amazing.
Yeah. No, it's pretty killer. Like I'm a creative type of music background. I was a graphic designer for a long time. And now, making games. So it's like, it's just fun to make them. It's hard, but making them is it's killer. It's so much fun.
Dude, I remember when I was younger, I wanted to be a video game programmer. Like, that was my thing.
Yeah.
I kept saying. And then I did one computer programming class in high school and changed my mind so fucking fast because it was just bad. Like, you have to be good at math for programming, and I was fine. I was good at math. But, like, I typed out all his code, and then my teacher's all excited. He's like, all right, guys, hit enter and see what happens. And I did, and, like, a circle showed up on the screen. I was like, get the fuck out of here. I just did all that for a circle. And it was the only class ever I purposefully failed. I was like, I don't care to do any more of this shit. I'm done. And me and this kid just sat on the internet all day while everybody else was actually doing classwork. I'm like, I'm not doing this. I refuse.
Yeah.
This is stupid.
It's yeah, exactly. Like I made a retro kind of retro Mega Man style game called The Small Robot Story, and it's a retro game, right? It's pretty basic, and it took 2.5 years. Like, it took a long time. And it's one of those things, like, coding is just so frustrating.
Right.
The best comparison, or I don't know if it's an analogy that I heard from a friend about coding is trying to figure out like your bugs in coding is like being the detective at a murder scene where you're also the murderer. like
what did I do?
Yeah. You're like, how did I do this? When did this happen?
That's a great analogy. Like,
Yeah.
what did I break? And like, that's why in a way, like certain games, I get to a point where like, you know, like for example, when you see those people that like by themselves make a game and like people go online and just go, this game's bullshit. I'm like, motherfucker, one dude.
Yeah.
One guy made that.
Yeah.
What are you talking? Like, I would love to see you do everything in this game by yourself and see how it is.
Yeah.
But again, they're not looking at it from that perspective. They're looking at it from, this is just a game. I'm sure 100 people worked on this game. Like, no, dude, one guy. Like,
Yeah.
give the guy a little bit of slack.
And
if I
in their
saw a
free
bad
time.
review, if I made a game by myself and I saw a bad review, I'd lose my shit.
Yeah, it's tough. Like, I've gotten a few bad ones, and I'm just like, one of them was like on point. It was like solid criticism, and I'm like, hell yeah, you know, these are things that like could have been fixed. But some of them, I'm just like, I'm like, shut up, go play something. You don't even like this style game. Like, why are you playing this game if you don't like these games? Like,
It's like fair points. Also, fuck you. How about that?
yeah,
Oh my God.
it could be crazy,
Yeah.
but it's fun. It's like it's a kind of a culmination of all my interests, you know, music and art and now coding. So I'm just like, it's fun. It's a blast.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I mean, like I said, to the point where you made your own game. Like again, like if I have enough talent to talk into a microphone and edit audio. That's about all I got. Like, I don't draw. I can't do like any other kind of shit like that, especially music. I can't do like the fact that like you're able to make your own game from scratch and it's all you. That's amazing, dude. Like, I applaud you for that because that right there, like the level of talent, dude. I'm also really like, when it comes to seeing things, I'm like, wow, that's really awesome. And some people are like, it took me 5 minutes to do that in Photoshop. I'm like, yeah, but you don't realize like it would take me 5 days to maybe get close. Like, that's amazing. Like, good for you though, man. That's great.
Thanks.
Okay, so one thing, obviously you've played a ton of different games and you've had all these games before. You got to a point where you're buying games with your own money. I usually ask this question to everybody. People get bad gifts and it sucks. But what was one game that you like were hyped for, saved your own money, bought it, and it was just the biggest letdown? Like, what's the worst game you bought with your own money?
So the worst game I bought was called it was a PS2 game called Musashi Samurai Legend. So this was a sequel to Brave Fencer Musashi, which was on the PS1.
Oh, right.
Which was a killer
Super good
Square.
game.
Yeah, Square game. It was fully voiced. Had voice acting. I think it was one of the first RPGs I got that had voice acting. And I loved Brave Fencer. Like, I ate that game up.
Right.
And I was at like, I think it must have been an Electronics Boutique because those aren't around anymore, right?
Well, they're GameStop basically now.
Right. That's what happened. I was at one of those and I was digging through the bargain bin and that should have been my first sign, right?
Gosh, this isn't good.
Yeah. I saw Musashi Samurai Legend and I was like, holy shit, I never knew there was a sequel to Brave Fencer Musashi.
Right.
And like I checked it out and it had cell shaded graphics and this was right around the time of Wind Waker. So I was like, hell yeah. So I brought it home and dude, it is such a shit game. Like, it's not, it's gotta be good. I'm sure there's some people who liked it, but I could not, like, I couldn't get past this boss. It was totally different. I guess it wasn't what I was expecting. It looked really good. It looked really pretty, but like, it just,
I'm looking
it was
at
a
screenshots
letdown.
of it and it looks cool. Like, again, like the cell shading around the time when Wind Waker was happening, like, this looks legit. But you know it's bad when IGN actually reviews it bad because a lot of the times IGNs won't give it. It got like a 5 on IGN. Like, yikes.
It wasn't what I was expecting. And I mean, maybe I could go back and try it, but I just remember getting to this one boss numerous times and over a couple of years trying it again and being like, no, this sucks. Like, it just wasn't what I wanted. And I was so disappointed. Because I thought I had found like a hidden gem, like, in the pile in this bargain bin, like, here it is.
Yeah, because like sometimes bargain bins, like, you're right though, because like sometimes it's full of just Wii games that are garbage.
Yep.
But example, Titanfall 2 is always in the bargain bin, and that's fucking absurd because Titanfall 2 is like such a stellar good game, but you can pretty much buy it anywhere for $20 now, and it's like, if people haven't played it, get your fucking life together and go play it because it's great. But no, like, sometimes you get burned, and that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a bummer. But what are you going to do?
If people wanted to check out that game or check you out on the internet, where would they go do all that?
Yeah, so A Small Robot Story is on Steam. It's $4.99 on Steam. It will be going on sale for the summer sale. So, I mean, hang around for when that comes around if you want if you want to wait for it. They can check it out there. Most of my stuff I put up on my itch.io site, so bclikesyu.itch.io. If you're not familiar with Itch, it's kind of like a Bandcamp for games. It's kind of an indie store.
Nice.
So I got some games up there, some little game jam games too. But yeah, BC Likes You is what I use kind of across the internet, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. It's all up there and hanging out. But working on a new game, but nothing visible yet. So
you're saving it for E3, right? For your big stage.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, when I give my talk.
Well, dude, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for sharing all your awesome stories with me, man. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem, man. Happy to do it. Thanks for having me.
All right. And again, thank you, BC, for being on the show. Guys, if you want to check him out, go ahead and follow him at BC Likes You. Of course, you could also check out his game, A Small Robot Story. Feel free to go on Steam. I'll have a link in the show notes so you can go there and check it out. Of course, also, if you're going to leave a review, be constructive. Don't be an asshole. Don't just say this game sucks and not let them know what's going on. So definitely good game, though. Obviously, it has more positive reviews than negative ones. So feel free to check that out, especially with the Steam sale, which might be over by now. I don't know. I don't know when Steam sales happen. I'm not a PC guy, sorry. But thank you again for being on the show. If you guys want to be on the show just like he was, send me a tweet at MitchPower1116 on Twitter or at the podcast Twitter page, which is at GUG Podcast. We also have the website, GUGpodcast.com, YouTube, GUG Podcast there, and on Facebook. We have a group, Growing Up Gaming. Just search that on Facebook there. Again, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you can catch new episodes every Tuesday. Don't forget to like or thumbs up whatever platform you're on. Leave 5 stars if you want to, or 4 stars. Again, if you like the show, definitely support it. And share it with people so we can get as many people on the show. So again, thank you guys so much for listening each and every week. I appreciate it. And I will catch you guys next week with another new episode. See ya.